If you love dark, slow-burn single dad romances with electric chemistry and a twist that lands like thunder, hit like, subscribe, and ring the bell so you never miss a new story. Tonight's tale. Single dad helped a shivering stranger inside. Her whisper made his heart stop. It is late March and the city smells of rain and hot pavement. Jonah Mercer locks the door to his small row house above the auto shop and moves through the apartment with the careful repetition of a man who keeps a small person alive. 7-year-old Eli sleeps with one arm thrown over a stuffed dinosaur. Blankets pulled high to his chin, breath soft and even. Jonah checks the monitor, one eye on a blinking green light, and turns down the radio. He has learned the quiet language of being a single father. Ear for small sounds, hands ready at midnight. A patience built through scraped knees and midnight fevers. He does not expect scraping at his front step. A frantic, anxious sound that breaks the night's ordinary rhythm. On the stoop beneath the awning, a woman huddles against the brick, rain chalking her hair to her neck. She is small, pale from the cold, coat soaking through, and her hands fold into themselves like someone trying to make their body a smaller, safer thing. Jonah opens the door without thinking, because this is what he does. The muscle memory of a man who lifts a child's stroller from a curb and fixes the stubborn alternator on a Tuesday. He offers the spare coat he keeps by the bench for late shifts and brings her inside in the way a person offers shelter to a bird with a broken wing. She takes the coat like an apology, eyes rimmed red. "Please," she says, voice thin, a whisper that could be a request or a prayer. Jonah lights a kettle, roots through a drawer for spare blankets, and tells Eli, who blinks awake and rubs his eyes, "There's a lady who needs warm bread." Eli fumbles to the kitchen and pushes half his cookie across the table. The child's generosity cracks Jonah's reserve in a way he won't name aloud. Something like relief and something like the first small chink that lets light into a long-closed room. She gives a name when she can: Mara Ashford. She works at the Historical Museum, cataloging fragile things and making sure the past keeps its soft face. Jonah listens because he wants to be more than the man who fixes engines. He wants to be someone who knows his son's teacher, and who remembers the name of the curator who holds the town's stories. Mara is white, late 20s, with ash blonde hair that clings damp to her neck and ink faint on her fingers from labeling old letters. There is a carefulness to the way she moves, a steady sensitivity to breakage, both objects and Jonah suspects people. They do not begin as anything like a couple. At first she is a guest, then a neighbor, then a presence that settles into the household's margins like light through curtains. Jonah sets rules without thinking. No guests in Eli's room, no late phone calls, keep to quiet hours. Mara laughs at his rules and accepts his scuffed jacket as if it is a treaty. Eli delights in new attention. He teaches Mara the dinosaur roar he invented and insists she know which bedtime story is the silly one. Jonah watches them and feels something small and dangerous stir in him. A yearning for mornings where someone touches a mug and thinks of him. Their intimacy grows in the slow ways that matter. Mara folding Jonah's worn shirts with the precision of someone who catalogs small details. Jonah making the same burnt pancakes on Sunday mornings, while Mara theatrically pretends to be a food critic to make Eli laugh. She brings a terrarium for the windowsill because Eli wanted something alive, and Jonah watches the boy name a tiny turtle Sir Paddle. They fit into one another's rhythms like gears meshing. Mara appears at the shop with the thermos of coffee when the morning turn drags, and Jonah learns the exact timing of Eli's favorite joke and laughs in a way that makes Mara look up and smile. Danger, of course, is patient. At first it is small. A car that lingers a street over. A silhouette beneath an awning that doesn't belong. A folded note appears on Mara's windshield one morning. 3 blunt words in a handwriting that feels possessed of ownership. "Stay away, Mara." Jonah's instincts are the mechanical kind. Check the locks, park his truck tight to the curb, sit and watch until the streetlight turns green. Mara, who has lived with polished facades and brittle loyalties, is not a woman who surrenders her life to fear. She files a report, speaks with a detective, and arms herself with the language of the law. Still, Jonah cannot sit idle. He drives Mara home from late museum openings, waits in his truck and watches the building until the lobby light goes out. He stands on the sidewalk like a sentinel and sometimes wants to solve problems with the blunt honesty of his fists. Mara knows the difference between a bruise and a legal paper. She chooses the latter. Jonah learns that protection is not always muscle. It can be patience, presence, the slow accumulation of witnesses, lawyers, orders, and careful planning. He learns to let the world of statutes do its work while he does the work of arriving. What surprises him is how tender she is in the small things. Mara kneels to thread a stubborn shoelace on Eli's sneaker with a care that looks like prayer. She carries home a stack of children's books from the museum and reads in a voice that makes Jonah notice the cadence of words the way he notices the rhythm of an engine. She leaves Post-its with notes about Eli's upcoming projects and quietly encourages him to try the science fair. Jonah, who once wore his independence like armor, lets that armor rust away in places so tenderness can reach through. Their quarrels are domestic and human. Over paint chips for the kitchen, over whether cereal counts as dinner if you add fruit. They clash in a way that proves their care. Apologies come quickly and without ceremony. Once Mara snaps at Jonah for trying to shoulder the shop's extra work alone. Jonah bristles. Old ghosts of a marriage that died because of distance make him stubborn. But Mara refuses to let him do it alone. She insists he allow help and insists more vehemently that his child be seen and not just provided for. Jonah, patient and stubborn, grumbles but opens. Then comes the night that stitches the wound to healing. Months after he first lifted Mara from the stoop, Jonah walks into the museum's courtyard after a late shift because Mara called with a voice that had the barest edge of panic. A shadow waits near the fountain. A man with a posture that smells of entitlement. Jonah's boots hit cobblestones hard. He meets the man with words that are too quiet to be kind. Leave her alone. The standoff is brief but lit with a fierce electricity. The man retreats into the dark. Mara hugs Jonah then, quick, grateful, whole in a way that makes his heart seize with relief and something else ripening in its place. The deepest cut of Mara's story is something she does not reveal at first. A family that prized perfection and punished displays of need. She tells Jonah slowly of a childhood where asking to stay at a neighbor's house was scandal, and where her first attempts at independence were met with a cold dismissal. She shows him photographs of a sister who married to secure status and a father who loved the idea of a name more than the person it belonged to. Jonah listens, surprised at how fully his chest fills with both sorrow and an ache that wants to repair what was broken. They do not stage dramatic confessions, nothing cinematic, no lightning-struck vows. Instead they accumulate intimacy like coins in a jar. A spat over a burnt pan. A kiss that smooths the rough edges of a workday. Mara teaching Eli to balance on the curb without falling. Jonah teaching Mara how to change a tire when a storm blows out a sidewall on some country road. They grow reliable in small ways. Jonah starts leaving work earlier so he can be home for bath time. Mara begins to check the calendar for Eli's school plays. The town notices. Neighbors start to offer casseroles and nod with the wordless approval of those who see a household become whole. There is a night months after the wedding that will come. That feels like a hinge. They have learned the architecture of each other. Mara knows how Jonah folds his hands when he's thinking. Jonah knows the exact phrasing of Eli's favorite bedtime plea. One stormy evening Jonah watches Mara dry dishes and remembers the first whisper that had stopped him on the couch. The frightened pleas that had been both plea and confession. Now she steps into the doorway with soggy towels and voice low and steady breeze. I think I'm falling in love with you. Jonah feels his chest stop then in the same way, only gentler this time. He answers with a laugh that trembles in a small, absolute yes. Eli, peeking from the top of the stairs, whoops and runs to hug them both, sealing the moment with the child's chaotic blessing. They are not immune to mean gossip. The diner men talk. A blogger wonders aloud where a curator gets her time for family. An ill-placed rumor twists around a fact and tightens like a noose. Jonah hears the whispers and feels first the fierce flare of defense, and then the softening that comes from knowing who stands with him. Mara handles slights like she handles fragile paper. She mends where she can, she files where she must, and she refuses to be defined by other people's judgments. Jonah learns to let words pass like rain off the hood of his truck. A crisis arrives not in a headline but in the weather. A pipe bursts beneath the sink, flooding the kitchen in one long alarming rush. Lego ships float. Eli howls and Jonah curses as he battles the water while Mara organizes towels and calls the plumber with calm precision. In the chaos Jonah watches Mara move. Steadfast, unflashy, heroic in the quiet sense, and realizes the depth of what he feels. He loves her with the kind of gravity that rearranges days. He tells her in the doorway draped with damp towels. She answers him with a look that is both fierce and soft. They marry in a small ceremony one summer in the museum's walled garden. Surrounded by neighbors, a few co-workers, Eli bouncing in a too large suit jacket. Jonah slips a ring onto Mara's finger over a grease stain he will always remember. They eat imperfect cake and laugh about the time Jonah tried to craft a mantle and ended up with shelves that bowed under the weight of truck manuals. Marriage does not fix everything. They still deal with invoices, stolen parts, and the occasional mean comment. But they have built a life where repair is possible, where apologies are easy, and where someone waits at the door with a mug in hand. Years later, the town knows them as those Mercers with fondness. Jonah still runs his shop and still comes home with oil under his nails, but he comes home to a door opened by two sets of hands. Mara catalogs treasures at the museum and brings home stories that make Eli wide-eyed. They keep watch in small ways. Mara texts when she leaves late. Jonah pauses on the porch when the streetlight flickers. The whisper that once stopped his heart has become their ordinary language. A reminder of how fragile beginnings can blossom into something that stays. If you enjoyed this slow-burn single-dad romance, danger and longing braided into the hum of a life, hit like and subscribe for more. We'll return with another story that proves love can find you in the rain and stay when the storm has passed.